Welcome back to Switch to Linux. Well, I've been working on this video for a while and I actually took a lot of notes back and forth and front and center and all this. So let me know, guys, if you like this style of video. We can do more of these. They just take a little bit longer to produce, but that's perfectly okay. I'm all down with that. I want to increase the quality anyway around here. But we're going to be talking about Linux Media Player Review. What I did is I went through, looked at some of the most popular or most common or most installed Linux music players. And I focus specifically on music players, although some of these cross over and be video players as well. But I want to focus specifically on what can you use on your Linux box to sit down and listen to music while you work. So my test machine is going to be Zorin. This is going to be the latest Zorin, and it's going to be, I just updated it the other day just to make sure we're as up to date as we can be. And then we went down and I took a series of notes on these different media players and the listing of things that I wanted to have a look at. I want to look at the theming. This is important. If you're running mostly Plasma-based stuff or Plasma XFCE, you might want to steer more towards a Qt-based. If you're running Gnome, or Cinnamon, Budgie, you might want to steer more towards a GTK theming just for better overall consistency. I wanted to look at libraries. Which media players support libraries? Which ones don't support libraries? And then for those that supported libraries, I want to look at how do you manage the library? Do you have any control over it? Some of these music players don't give you any control at all. Some of them give you a boatload of control. I want to look at what players minimize to the system tray. So if you close the player, it continues to play music in the background and then allows you to open it back up. We wanted to look at just a general ease of use and how fast is the media player to load. That one's actually fairly significant because some of the media players might take a little bit longer to load up. And that means if you're just double clicking on a file on your desktop, just to open up a basic media player, and then it takes forever, and you're just like, I just want to listen to this file. I wanted to go ahead and have a look at some of those. The best example I can come up with on the photo end of things, if your system accidentally opens up GIMP every time you double click on a JPEG, GIMP just takes so long to load, although it's so good. But you want to make sure that you have a variety of different media players for different purposes. And so I wanted to have a look at some of those. So what we're going to do here is we're actually going to start out, and what I wanted to do first is let's look at two players which are basically going to be very quick loading, fast media players that you can just load up really quickly. These are kind of designed as your default players, just if you need to double click something and listen to it. Particularly if you're in audio production, you just need to hear a soundbite, something very quick that's not going to add itself to libraries and stuff like that. So I want to go ahead and have a look at two of those. So jumping back over here onto Zorin, the first one I want to look at is MPV. Now, of course, I think it's Celluloid on, is it Celluloid? I think it's Celluloid on Linux Mint is based on MPV. That one actually has a few more options than MPV has. MPV has pretty much no options. You can drag and drop a file here, and allegedly you can drag and drop a URL here. The problem is that oftentimes the URLs don't seem to play. I looked into some documentation on this, and it does seem to appear based on your system. I tried to copy and paste some URLs in. I tried to just drag it from Firefox over into here, and I was not actually able to get URLs to play. But as far as if you wanted to just go ahead and open up any individual music file here, then you can just go ahead and drag a file in here. Now, just as a brief note, I have disabled the desktop audio, so you're not going to be able to hear any music. I did this for copyright purposes. I don't want to accidentally click something and then go ahead and get something playing. But what we should be able to do is just drag and drop files into here. And I thought I tested that earlier and it was working earlier, but apparently it is not working right now. So dragging and dropping into MPV is not actually necessarily the best option. I generally don't use it that way anyway. I do actually on Endeavor. That is actually how I use Endeavor OS. I drag and drop files, and if you grab a whole album and drop it over, it will actually add them all to your playlist. This one is really good for just for doing things like auto default opening. So it's going to open up and it's going to play, and we don't have a lot more than just some basic controls and things like that. So I'm not sure what's wrong with Zorin that's not actually allowing me to drag and drop files over to it. I assure you this does work on MPV on my Endeavor OS system. It does load just files. It is based on GTK theming, and it does not minimize to the system tray. Very easy to use, primarily if it's set as your default player, and this will support music and video. So this is what I like to install, either this or something like it, like Celluloid on Linux Mint. This is what I use as a default when I'm double-clicking a video or a music file, because it loads instantaneously, it plays, and then it's done. So I don't deal with any of the other odds and ends back and forth involved here. So the URLs, you're going to have some spotty interaction on your URLs. That's just going to be a nature of what is going on. And then overall, though, this is set as a good default. Now, the second player that we want to look at as a default is going to be Dragon Player. So Dragon Player, this one is based on Qt. So this one here, if you're running more of a Plasma or Mate, XFCE, something like that, this one might work a little bit better for you. This one has a few options with it. It is also fast. It is also ideal as a default player. If I remember correctly, I believe it will play video as well, although since this is a music one and I don't use Dragon Player otherwise, I did not completely testify to that. However, the biggest downside I find is while you have the option here to play a file, there is no option in the file dialog box to say, show me all file options. So you literally have to go in here and find the type of file you want to play. And then you have to double click it from there. So like, okay, I want to play MP3, and you can notice they're not in specific formats. So let's go over to music. You can actually open up MP3 files here, and it is now playing. Of course, you're not going to be able to hear it, but it is playing. You can hit the full screen option here if you want. You can exit the full screen option. Again, if you click the close button, it's just going to stop playing. You can, of course, on something like this, minimize it to the screen here. This guy here, it will, as you saw, it will play discs. I don't see any specific, there you go, click back to the play media button. You can play your discs, or you can play a stream. So if you happen to have some form of internet stream, you can play any of those. It will require codecs. You need to make sure you have codecs involved in your system. Like MPV, this does not have any library functions. I find that of the two, MPV generally works better for me, although Dragon Player does have the option to open up a dialog box and grab your file, although you have to select the type of file you want to load first, and there is no option to say, hey, pull in any file that you might be able to play. So little downside on that, but overall Dragon Player is pretty good, particularly if you're looking for a very quick to load default option for Qt. Dragon Player might be your best bet to go. So those are those two. The next two players we're going to look at are going to be things that are pretty much available to play absolutely anything and everything, even without codecs on your system, but they don't have any library resources. And then we'll get into the library resource ones. Of course, the most popular of all of these is going to be VLC. I always install VLC on any system, although I don't generally make it my default. You have the option to enable or disable network connections, which are going to be very beneficial for you going in and determining what it can go on the internet and do. And since I don't like internet access on things where possible, I tend to disable this. It is based on Qt, but it does have actually some theming options that I've actually never really used before. But if you go down to customize the interface, you can put things above or below the video. You can go with big buttons. You can go with flat buttons. And then you can actually indicate what is here and what is not. So you can actually take these guys off. I think you can take them off. I never played with the customizing options. Oh, I think you can. That's what you can do. You can drag things on and off is what you can do. So you can move things on and off. You can put things into the different lines. So you can basically go back and forth with the various things that you want. You have your timing toolbar here. You have your advanced widget, and you have a full screen controller. See, there's a lot of options that you have for customizing the platform. It will play pretty much everything. You can open files, you can open multiple files, you can open a directory, you can open a disk. On the disk option, you have DVD, Blu-ray, audio. Now, I've never tested Blu-ray. Since VLC does come with its own codecs, it might actually work. So if you're trying to play a Blu-ray, this is going to be the best place to start. But I don't generally, I don't have any Blu-rays, nor do I have a Blu-ray player. I have used VLC for playing basic DVDs. It's my go-to application for that. You can use it for audios or SVCDs or VCDs. You do have options. If you want to enter a network URL, you can do that, and you can actually use it for capturing. I do find that the capturing, and it can also do some transcoding, both capturing and transcoding, they do not work super well on VLC. It's there if you have this and you don't want to install anything else, but it's not particularly fun or easy to use. For transcoding, definitely look at Handbrake. For streaming, look at OBS. But they are options that you have. Inside of your playback, there's just your basic, you can do your chapters and titles if your disk supports those. Not a whole lot otherwise here, but there are a lot of things from playing subtitles. The biggest selling point of VLC is that it can play pretty much every type of file, and it comes with its own codecs. There are no library options, although you can throw a bunch of files in here and save a playlist. So it's one of the easiest ways when I need to make a playlist. That's what I do. I dump the songs into there, I save as the playlist, and then export the playlist. That's actually what I found works best for those. So this VLC to me is a good video player and audio player that I tend to add, although I don't use it for everything. It's not my default. I don't use it a lot. It's that good backup that always works in case whatever else I'm doing just doesn't work quite as well. Now, the next one is very similar to VLC. This is called SM Player. And with SM Player, some people have criticized some of the direction of VLC or some of the bloated nature of VLC, so they made something just as bloated called SM Player. So SM Player, it pretty much does everything that VLC does. It is also Qt based. It has its own internal codecs, so you don't need to worry about installing codecs. And one of the other things, this guy here under Open, you can do File, Recent Files, Favorites, Directory Playlists. You have discs. Again, I have not trusted the Blu-ray, but it is an option. You have VCDs, audio. You can do URLs. They also have radio and TV, which I don't recall seeing in VLC. So those are some options you have. Additionally, it has casting features. So they can cast to a Chromecast, and it says it can cast to a smartphone and tablet. I tested that function out with my smartphone. It was not able to work. Part of that could very possibly be just simply due to the fact that I'm running on a virtual box and my smartphone is very locked down. So those are contributing factors to why I was not able to get it to work. But it's something that if you want to experiment with, it's something that at least has the options. It is also very easy to use, somewhat slow to load as VLC is, so I would not generally use it as a default, but it is going to be good to install, particularly if you're not a huge fan of VLC. This is going to be your best overall alternative. We do have a thumbnail generator. If you need to generate some thumbnails, you can go ahead and do that inside here. And once again, there are no specific library options, but we do have things like subtitles and log informations and just other options in here as well. So that is the two systems that we have that have their own internal codecs. They can pretty much play anything, video or audio. they really are, for me, some good go-to options. Now, the next players we're going to get into, in fact, the whole rest of the list of them are going to be various good and bad systems that can support a library function. So this is if you have your own libraries and you would like to do, you just kind of like to listen to those, the music when you're playing off of your own system or even on some online systems, some of these guys are going to work. So our first player here among our playlists is going to be Audacious. Audacious is nice in that it's just very text-based. So if you just need something with simple text-based, I do find it's a little bit harder to use. The libraries also are not automatic, which is kind of good for the people that don't like to load up a music player and see that it is skirted through your whole music folder and added everything to it. I know that some people do not like the music players that do that. It does not do that. So when you load this guy up over here and you hit your search option here, then you can see that there's no library here. You can tell it where to go. You can just kind of select where your location is and then just hit the refresh button and it's going to scan through there. Now, what I don't like about it is the basic organization. So here we can see that I have 20 songs under Tears for Fears. I have 10 songs here, 10 songs here. So it is actually sorting albums and artists, but it's kind of a little bit clunkier to use. We do have a music option here. We have a library option here. We can click the basically the sort by functions, but it's actually a little bit harder and a little bit clunkier to use. I'm not a huge fan of this one. It does pull in libraries, like library art from online. You don't really have a choice of the matter. It just kind of does it all on its own. So you might like that. You might not like that. It is somewhat easy to use, although I do find the library functions a little bit clunky. So here is the best selling point of this application is if you go down under your, I think it's under your settings, under file settings, you can see it is based on GTK, but this one also has Winamp classic interfaces. So you can actually choose to go with a variety of Winamps. Now, I don't know if you can install new Winamp files. I know it's possible now to download the whole spectrum of Winamp skins and themes. I'm not sure if you can. They do have a number. They have the classic 2X, the 1.3, the default 2X. They have the Ivory, Osmosis, Refugee, Tiny Player. So these are the options that they have. Let me go ahead and just play something just so you can kind of see. I like this one of the ones that they give us. But these are the skins that they have. You can see what they look like playing there. So this one is the only one that has these options. And if you close out all the library stuff, you can do this and make it really small if you want. So if you just want a little bar, you can do that. And if you need the settings options or if you need to convert it back to GTK, you can just go ahead and do this. So that's the biggest selling point of this one is if you are an old classic guy and you love that old Winamp style, this gives you the Winamp themes and styles. It's, again, fairly easy to use. You can search through your library and things like that. So it's not bad. It's honestly just not my favorite, particularly if you like the album art. You have to hover over something to see what the album art is, and even that's pretty small. You don't have any other artist information or things like that. That might be exactly what you want, but regardless. Now this one, it will close as soon as you hit the close button, so it's not going to continue to play. So if you do like things that's minimized to the system tray, then it's probably not going to be your best bet. Now, the next one is going to be Clementine, and there's also a fork called Strawberry that is very similar, and I could not tell you the difference between the two. Just so you guys know, there is a fork of Clementine called Strawberry that is big enough to be in Arch repositories and some other ones, although I did not see it in the Zorin repositories here as well. Clementine is very nice in that it can play a variety of different things. We have the search option, which will search a variety of different things. We have the library options. I do find the library options here are a whole lot better than the library options that we found on Audacious, and that you can see there they're nice and organized here. I can pull down the artist. Let me find an artist. I think I have a couple under Tears for Fears. You'll notice, though, that I had spelled the Tears for Fears wrong on one of them, so this separates out by 2 library options. There is actually one of the music players that recognizes this simple typo and fixes it, but most of them do not. So here, though, I can just go ahead and pull up an individual album. I can play it. And then the other options that we have inside of this, we can pull in other options. As far as the library is concerned, you do have full control over the libraries. So you can tell it does not automatically populate the library with your music folder. What you can do is you can just go ahead and add, you can add new libraries, new folders to the library. Let me find that function for you real quick. Okay, so it's going to be under Tools and Preferences. Under Music Library, you can see that you can add a variety of different folders. So if you want to add a variety of different folders, you can do that. You can also remove individual folders. And then you can monitor the library for changes, which is a default option. You can monitor the library when it starts. And then I don't know of any specific way if you can remove something directly other than, let's just right-click and see if you can delete from disk. I don't see the option just remove from the library. Maybe it's there and I just don't see it, though. But you could move it out of that library folder, so you don't have those specific options. We have some nice visualizations. Let's have a lot of different plugins that are available. You can go online here, and you can see we have Spotify. You have various radio stations. There's OneDrive. There's podcasts. Dropbox, Google Drive. There's just so many options that you have inside of this, making Clementine a very nice player. Additionally, the default option is if you close it, it's going to continue to play in your system tray. Now here on Zorin, this is the only music player that actually gave me a system tray icon. Maybe that's just the fact that we're on Gnome and Zorin, and Gnome is a little spotty with system tray icons. This is the only one that has the icon, although we'd have to check some other distributions to see what it has. As far as other options inside of here, it is going to go online and grab your options. So you do have the ability to disable network remote connections, and it does support streams, CDs, playlists. It is Qt based as well, and it can grab you song and artist information from online. In fact, let me go ahead and show you that over here. Here is song information. So you can see the Last FM. Here's the lyrics from lyrics.com, so you can actually get your lyrics. And then over here, you can actually get artist information. So it gives you the biography, the history, just a lot of different stuff from whatever artist is currently playing. So that's actually a really nice option for those that really like those extra Easter eggs, or you want to know a little bit more about your music. So there you go. Clementine and Strawberry are definitely awesome choices. So let me go ahead and close Clementine out from the system tray, and then we will move on to the next one that we are talking about, and that's going to be Gnome Music. Of all the players that we have, I pretty much hate Gnome Music the most. Why is that? Well, the biggest problem I have with Gnome Music is that it generally, there's a lot of issues with it as far as Gnome is taking this philosophy that is so user-friendly. They've removed all ability for you to do anything. I don't have the ability to go in and say where my music library is. It's just like, oh, it's in the music folder. Let's add this to the library. Yay! And so here is what it looks like. Obviously, Gnome Music is based on GTK, duh, because, GTK is Gnome, basically. It's going to automatically import your music, and you have no control. I would even figure, hey, maybe I can click this guy here and delete. No, you can't. You can add it to a playlist, but you can't actually delete anything on there if you click your select function. It can create a playlist with the select function, no library management at all. That's kind of the downside. The really upsides that it is good looking and has easy layout options. If I want to sort by albums, I can do that. If I want to sort by artists, I can do that. Once again, you can see it does not lump my Tears for Fears together. Most of them do not. I will show you the one that does eventually. I do like the layout, though. The layout is very, very easy to use. Here's your song layout. if you play a song. Now this one is going to continue to play when you hit the close button, and I forget exactly how to even get it to stop. So that is either a positive or a negative. Of course, here on Gnome, there's no icon for it. And so I would have to get in there and and figure that out. So there is no stop button. There's a pause button. So presumably if you just pause it and close it, good enough. You can see that they have an option over here. You can log into a Last.fm account. In theory, I'm guessing this is working if you're using your online accounts maybe. There's an about, a keyboard shortcuts, and a help. And that is it. That is all we have. So not overall the best, but at least it looks nice and it functions easy. It's easy to use, and it's going to work flawlessly with Gnome, being is that it is specifically written for Gnome. Now, if you want a better music player for Gnome, then the default that many distributions ship with is going to be Rhythmbox. Rhythmbox, I have a love-hate relationship with it. It does automatically, it is based on GTK, it is for Gnome. It does automatically import all of your music libraries from your music folder in, but unlike Gnome Music, you actually have the ability to control that library. So if we come in over here and we pull this guy down and look under, I believe it's under our preferences, you can see you can tell it where to search your library. So we can't add multiple like we can in Clementine, but we can actually tell it to look in a different place. You can watch it for new files to automatically do things. We do have a library structure where we can do artist, album, so there's a lot of different options that you have. You can indicate what the file name is. You can talk about the preferred formats and things like that. So that is one of the good things, is it does have a library that, while it's not my favorite, it actually is easy to use. It's all text-based. We have artists over here. We have albums over on the other side. But once you start playing something, it'll give you the album art here. You can hover over it to see what the album looks like there. Now, the biggest reasons I keep Rhythmbox on my platforms is I do like listening to some podcasts, and you actually can come in here, you can add a podcast, and this is going to, you can actually go in there and you can either paste in the specific feed or you can search for a podcast. So if there's a podcast that has a specific feed, you can go ahead and do that. And if it does not have a specific feed, then you can at least search for something. So let's see if we can find, is Joe Rogan, okay. I'm guessing Joe Rogan might be available. Yeah, there you go. Spirituality, really? Okay. I don't know. Maybe I spelled Joe Rogan wrong. But anyway, that's not one I listen to. But you can see that you can search this. And if I remember correctly, the search function goes through iTunes is what it says. Oh, iTunes and Miro Guide. Or you can actually enter a podcast feed, and then it's going to automatically download things. And if you saw the options in the preferences for podcasts, this is going to tell you where exactly it's going to download those podcasts into. So that's actually a really nice option. We do have Last.fm, Libre FM. We have radio options in here as well. So if you like to listen to radios, Rhythmbox does have those options in there for you. Overall, not my favorite for listening to my library. I actually don't like how it organizes the libraries, but you also have to understand that my old favorite classic was overall was Windows Media Player. Don't hate me that much for blasphemy. On Linux, I loved Banshee. Unfortunately, it is no more, so I had to go out and do a search for another music player. And so that leads me to the music player that I like the most of all of the music players that I have found now. It still does not quite replace my Banshee, but is about as best that I have found, and that is Lollypop. Lollypop is also based on GTK, so you're going to have, it's going to, integrate best with a Gnome platform. What I love about this is just the ability to customize it, how everything is sorted out. And by the way, this is the one music player that did fix my typo in Tears for Fears. So it does recognize that these are the same artists, so it only shows me one link to artists rather than two Tears for Fears links. And so I love how smart the library is. It's going to fix that simple misspelling. We do have inside of our library options, we actually have options to have multiple different players, and then the simple reset database for music database resections. I'm making up new words. Database resets here. So if it's completely messed something up, you can just add your new folder, reset the database. It's going to clear everything and then search for whatever options you have. You can have multiple folders in there. So for people that want to have multiple different music folders organized, you can do that. The other options in the preferences are amazing. Web, you can enable or completely disable it. As a privacy guy, I love the option to automatically completely disable all network access. But if you do want to use network stuff, we have Last.fm, Libre FM, Spotify, Audio, FanArt, iTunes, Deezer, YouTube, Google, and then there's Wikipedia, DuckDuckGo, MusicBrainz. There's so many options that we have inside here if you do want to allow network. You can auto-update music. You can continue playback when it is closed, although, again, I don't get the system icon here in Zorin, but you can toggle that on or off. So if you like that function, you can turn it on. If you don't like that function, you can turn it off. You can restore state on startup. You can do playlists and a variety of different things. As far as your appearance, you can use dark theme variants if available. There's compilations, and you can show or hide album artwork, and you can actually go with the album cover size. So there's so many neat options that we have. As far as the layouts, there's suggestions. Now, you can see I do not like these online suggestions. This is actually triggered by the fact that you turned on your online networks. So if you do not want to see these, you think this is a little creepy, then you actually have the option to turn that off just by turning that off in the network settings. Here's popular albums. I haven't set any. You can do albums, random albums recently added. You can go into individual albums here, and then the layout is very nice. We have the album layout. We have other albums by this artist, and then our songs are nice and logically listed out here. We can go online. It says no items there because I've not actually logged into any accounts. There is a place to log into the accounts in here. Here's compilations. Here's just your individual artists. You can also do your artists as a list. And these are options. I'll show you how you can add these on. Here's genres, playlists, anything playing in here is a search function. Now you can customize this bar over there with these three dots down here at the bottom. So over here, if you don't like genres, I don't care for genres. I don't keep my genres up to date. I don't necessarily need the album artist list. Don't need that. I found lyrics did not seem to work. I probably don't need the search function. I definitely don't want to see your suggestions again. And I don't really need that either. So now, now I can completely customize what my layout looks like. This is basically all I need. This is why I like Lollypop the most. So it has the best overall layout with the best options for layout. We can adjust the sizes of the folders that we have. It's very easy to use. Everything in Lollypop works great. And so really that is why I went with that one as my go-to choice. I have it installed on my writing computer for when I'm writing and want to listen to something soft in the background. I have that going. And then I'll put that on other computers where I actually want to have a media player where I can't have Banshee anymore. But anyway, that being said, Lollypop is one of my favorite, but hopefully this video gave you a good place to go to for just a lot of different music players, so you can go ahead and see what's out there, experiment with them, and find the best music player for your particular way of interacting with music on your Linux computer. So thanks for watching, guys. Let me know if you like this format, if you like this type of research and software comparisons, and we can probably do more of them in the future. Thanks for watching. Leave some comments down below. Subscribe to the channel if you've not already, and we will see you next time. Thank you for watching this video from Switched to Linux. This channel would not be possible without the backing of the program supporters scrolling on the screen now. You can be a supporter at patreon.com/TOMM or at thinklifemedia.com. I also want to thank the open source community who creates such excellent software that makes producing this show possible. Please remember to support your software communities. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.